Last night in overtime. First win for the Lakers over the Clippers since July 30th, 2020, when the NBA was in the bubble down in Orlando. The win snapped an 11-game losing streak to the Clippers. Austin Reeves scored 7 of his 15 points in overtime. LeBron played 42 minutes. He led the Lakers with 35 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists. Congratulations to the Texas Rangers and their shortstop Corey Seager. The Rangers shut out the Arizona Diamondbacks last night to win their first World Series. The Rangers did it in 5 games. They were 11-0 on the road in the postseason. Seager, who played 7 seasons with the Dodgers, was named World Series MVP. Seager had 3 homers and 6 RBIs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Environmental justice, pollution, and climate. In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
Baby, let's cruise away from here. Don't be confused. The way is clear. And if you want it, you got it forever. This is not a one-night stand. So let the music take your mind. Ooh, just release and you will find you're gonna fly away. Glad you're going my way. I love it when we're cruising together.
My board out Miles is he's so clever. Let it ride, Miles. He's so clever. We're having a conversation in a moment about robo-taxi companies, and Miles plays Cruising by William Smokey Robinson. Very cute, Miles, very cute. 2 conversations in this hour. On the B side of this hour, we'll talk politics with political commentator, lawyer, TV host, and former National Press Secretary for Bernie Sanders, Brianna Joy Gray. Brianna joins us on the back side of this hour. We commenced this hour, as I said, talking about robo-taxi companies who are trying to expand despite hitting some rough patches with driverless vehicles. Nicole Moore is president of Rideshare Drivers United and joins us live in studio right now to talk about how the coalition is advocating for better compensation and working conditions for rideshare drivers and for all the rideshare drivers who are listening to us right now, wherever you are driving in this country. Thank you for tuning in to Tavis Smiley, and thank you, Nicole Moore, for coming in to see us. How are you today?
Very good. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you in studio. Let me just start by asking you to give me, I do this sometimes with certain guests. So the president every year gives us a State of the Union address, right? Here's the state of our union, as I say all the time. They always lie and tell us the state of our union is strong. It ain't. I love our country. A lot's wrong, a lot to be fixed, but they always tell the same line, the same lie. The state of our union is strong. So what is the state of robotaxi? What is the state of rideshare in America right now? Years ago, this innovative idea came online. So give me your brief state of ride share in America right now.
Well, nothing innovative about giving people a ride.
Yeah.
What the companies, Uber and the rest of them came in, did is they decided to call it rideshare, and decided that this was going to be a great way to pay people, make really low-cost rides and pay people a lot of money. But what's happened over the years is it's gone just the opposite, and what we're seeing is, the companies often take in a majority of the fare. We're seeing passengers paying a lot of money for rides that maybe cost half what it was before, and drivers, we're making less than minimum wage after you take out our driving expenses and everything else, and it's in a lot of states, here in California, for instance, they've changed the laws so that we actually are getting like second-class labor rights. That Prop 22 was supposed to, give us some protections. What it did is it codified that we're fake independent contractors. We're not setting our wages. AI is setting our wages, right? The same way they're setting it for the passengers. Passengers are the algorithm goes in and judges what's your highest pay point as a passenger, right? It can look at how you've done stuff in the past, and it'll hit you with the highest price that they think you'll pay. The same thing has happened to us, only the other way around. They're looking for our lowest pay point. So what we're seeing is just our pay is going lower and lower, and this is a piece of AI. Right? And it's a piece of the data that we've created for these companies has become the basis of how they're now doing robo-taxis. And it's important. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to watch the Jetsons, right?
I watched it 2 nights ago. I'm still a big kid, and I still love watching the Jetsons on Boomerang. I watched it 2 nights ago. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, because I think I was taken with this idea that robots were going to make our lives easier, that we were going to be able to kick back, maybe read some more books, maybe get into some things that weren't going to make us money because somebody else was going to be washing the car, doing part of our jobs, whatever, right? We're seeing actually the absolute opposite, because there isn't really good regulation around AI. For every job that's taken, somebody's without a job, and somebody who's sitting in the C-suite is making a ton of money without paying anybody. And so we're actually finding ourselves, just in rideshare, even without robo-taxis, we're making less and less, having to work more and more hours. Most of the people, the majority of people you get in the car with now who are driving, they're full-time drivers. The majority of drivers that you see are their primary money is coming from that. And because of that, our prices are going up, but our pay is going down. So we're putting in 70, 80 hours. So as we approach this AI thing, it's the opposite of the Jetsons.
Yeah. When we come forward, I want to talk about AI, because everybody in this summer of strikes that we just went through, in this season of strikes that continues, UAW, big victory the other day, of course, all three automakers. But everybody has some AI concerns.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. That's at the epicenter of every one of these labor strikes.
Yes.
Writers Guild, Screen Actors Guild, AI is at the center of every one of these strikes. In case you hadn't paid attention to that, there's a linear line there I want to interrogate when we come forward. And I want to talk about why it is the exact opposite from the way it was envisioned. You've said it 3 times. It's the exact opposite from the way it was supposed to be. Why is that? Nicole Moore is president of Rideshare Drivers United. More with her when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom. Escalade IQ.
This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since '92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Deal it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac, Cadillac, Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience, temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with one of the panelists, the owner of Kids Love. Take a listen.
So Kids Love, KIDSLUV, is a first-to-market zero-sugar, vitamin-enhanced functional beverage for kids.
So the zero sugar is really important because if not, the sugar gets on the teeth, it can cause cavities. So as a mom, I love this vitamins and hydration in one. Tell us what's happening here with Chase Bank today.
So I would say, I think what Chase is trying to do is create a community actually for entrepreneurs, a place where people can go. They have the space to do it. It's a beautiful space. And to be able to have these conversations. There are so many benefits to being a women-owned and certified business from a standpoint of getting into stores, not paying the slotting fees of what it takes to be in stores. So I think Chase is trying to bring awareness to a lot of the things that people just don't know about, that not only the bank can help, but outside of the bank, their relationships can help create.
That's beautiful. And I know, this is how we build equity in communities of color, is kind of spreading that information and that knowledge. So thank you for being here today and doing your part and letting these women know that it is possible.
For KBLA 1580, I'm Maisha Cairo in the community with Chase.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
It does indeed with Nicole Moore, president of the Rideshare Drivers United. I was talking to Nicole during the break about a few things I now kind of want to reprise on air. I try not to do that because sometimes the best parts are during the breaks and shouldn't be that way for the audience. But there are a few things I want to come back to now that we were talking about a moment ago. Let me start with this season of strikes that we are in right now. I recognize that rideshare workers in this country right now are not a union as such. There is Rideshare Drivers United, of which you are the president, but you're not a union as such. But if Rideshare Drivers United, rideshare workers across the country, were to uniformly go on strike right now, just work with me here, just work with me. If you were to uniformly go on strike right now, like all these other unions have gone on strike, what would you be striking over? What would the demands on that list look like?
Well, right now, the main thing that's going on for us is that we are fake independent contractors. Mm-hmm. I think there's not a driver in the country that doesn't want to have, be able to set our own schedules and all that. And that's something that the tech allows us to do.
When you say fake independent contractors, explain that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So fake, meaning, I've actually done contracting work before. I set my what they were going to have to pay me. Mm-hmm. I made sure that when gas prices went up, I got more money. Mm-hmm. I made sure that that the expenses that I had out of pocket for working with that client, that I got paid on top of that. Mm-hmm. We don't have that, right? And in fact, a lot of us we find ourselves basically fired by robots. Right? Mm-hmm. AI just will deactivate us. And sometimes the company doesn't even know exactly why, because it's all based on an algorithm, firing us. Now, if you get fired from a regular job, you have a little bit of a safety net to fall back on unemployment insurance. We don't even have that.
There's some recourse. Yeah.
We don't have that, and we don't have hearings about why we're fired, anything like that. So when I say what would we strike for, we need full rights, right? Full rights like every other worker. Why we don't have a human breathing down our neck, but we have an algorithm on that phone that it doesn't tell us we have to start at 6 p.m. But I'm telling you, you pick up your phone, try to work at 3 a.m, you're not making any money, right? So we are actually, very controlled in terms of when we can work. And when they're paying us as low as they are now, most of the full-time drivers I know are putting in, 50, 60, 70 hours a week just to make the same amount of money they were making 3 years ago with half that time, right? So that is control.
What would you say, I don't know if you have the data on this, but what would you say the percentage is of folk who are rideshare drivers who do it as a full-time job? And I ask that because I think for many of us, when we get in these cars, I was in one yesterday, when we get in these cars and we think we're supporting that so-called gig economy, oftentimes we find ourselves in conversations with the drivers and they're doing it to make extra money. So it's not their primary job. They're doing it to make extra money. But I hear you saying now that there are a lot of folk for whom this is really their full-time job.
Yeah, the industry couldn't work without full-time drivers. Otherwise, you turn on your app, you ask for a driver at 2 a.m, you're not going to get one, right? We count on, as consumers, those full-time drivers. Full-time drivers drive the majority of the miles, period, right, in every market. There's a lot of part-time drivers, but it's not the dependable kind of service that Lyft and Uber count on for their customers. So you have to have full-time, and you got to have some part-time too. Let's face it, Friday night, you got to pull in a lot of extra people, and that's where the part-timers like me, we come out on Friday nights. So.
Yeah. I mentioned this earlier, and I want to come back to this because you've pressed this issue more than once in this dialogue. And that is AI. I mentioned again moments ago that every strike that we've seen of late has some connection to AI. AI is at the center of this strike in some way, shape, or form. Absolutely for the writers, absolutely for the Screen Actors Guild, UAW, even all these different people being afraid of being replaced by machines, et cetera, et cetera. So AI is at the epicenter of all of these strikes, and I'm not sure. I'm noodling it even as I ask this question. I'm not sure how I should read that because, in many ways, AI is something people celebrate and what it can do. And oftentimes we lose sight of all the harm that these technological so-called advances bring us. So how should I read that all of these unions, all these institutions, organizations, individuals who are striking are on the picket line in some way because of AI?
Because nobody's putting guardrails on it, right? If we don't put guardrails on it, where we go is that a few people in the C-suite are making a ton of money off of these new robots going around, and the rest of us are having to work twice as much because there's just not the pay or the jobs that we need, right? And so, it's about guardrails. Lyft and Uber, their plan was to come in without regulation, without labor, and to change the laws to make it so that, drivers could make, right now we've estimated that we're making around $6.50 an hour after expenses and the fact that we don't have unemployment insurance or health insurance and that kind of thing. Who can make it on $6.50 an hour in LA? Or in Chicago, or New Orleans, you can't make it on that. So we have to have guardrails in it. Well, these companies came in without those guardrails, and now you're seeing the effect of it. Same thing's going to happen with AI. They're feeling it everywhere in every industry. I think one of the things, I really think of the work that we do is it's transport work. It's old work. Everybody's been driving somebody around since the day the wheel was invented. It's old work. But what's happening is they're taking away the regulation. If you look at what happened here in California, they've got these these AI taxis now. And, how many videos are you seeing up on social media where they're all stuck in one place? Cruise shut down because they actually lied about a customer or a passenger being dragged 20 feet under a cruise vehicle before the vehicle even stopped, right? So where's the safety guardrails on this? But, we're looking at, transportation jobs in the past have been solid middle-class jobs. And because people organized in those sectors, driving an 18-wheeler when I was coming up, that was a good job, taking those big freight trucks, and you were a teamster. You had it. They deregulated that stuff, right? So those jobs have actually gone down in pay, but the teamsters are fighting back on that. Now they're talking about putting AI drivers, robot drivers in those 18-wheelers. Look at what's going to happen if we don't put guardrails on that.
You mentioned the Jetsons earlier in this conversation, and since we're talking now about robo-taxis,
yes,
and perhaps driverless 18-wheelers, that's a little scary. But how concerned are you that as we move into the future, that AI will in fact mean that one day the taxis will be driverless? The freight trucks will be driverless. How concerned are you about that, speaking of a Jetsons future?
I'm very concerned about it if we continue to let tech roll over everything we fought for. And that's really where I'm at is if we don't there's a lot to imagine here. We got to get safety right, right? It would be great if what it meant that there was an 18-wheeler driven by safe AI, that there was somebody whose job it took was actually making it okay living. How are we going to make that happen, right? I heard somebody was saying, well, what if we did a lifetime tax for AI? And any job that was messed up by an AI robot, basically that worker gets paid from a tax off this AI, right? Something like that. And when that person either gets a different kind of job or retires or whatever, it's still a lifetime tax, and that money goes back into the community.
That's going to be a lot of people into the future if they keep advancing AI and pushing it the way they are.
Well, and that's why they're talking about universal income and all that. But that's not making the kind of traction that it needs. Like, our jobs are being hurt right now by AI, and that's why people are on strike. We're demanding guardrails. Drivers aren't on strike yet, but we need full labor rights. We need to make sure that when we get in the car that we're actually making money, not losing money, right? We need to make sure that there's that the companies are actually responsible for creating policies that keep us safe, that keep passengers safe, and that's not happening right now.
Give me a quick example. I'm watching my timer. Give me a quick example of how one could be a driver and lose money.
Okay. We call them charity rides. Basically, it's a 10-mile ride, and you're going to get $5 for it.
Okay.
Costs more than that to operate your vehicle. Now, we don't have to accept every ride. But then the company gets mad at us when our acceptance rate is low and you don't get all the same perks. And if you cancel a ride because you figure out it's too little money, then you really get dinged. And that's what I'm saying about being a fake independent contractor. We have a boss. It's not breathing down our neck, but it's looking at us on our phones.
So we sit in California right now, and you are the president of Rideshare Drivers United. There are drivers all across this country who you're fighting for. But we sit in California, and I've often said that what happens in California politics either casts a long shadow or a long sunbeam across the nation. Everybody watches California. They're watching us right now on reparations, as you know.
Yes.
What's California going to do in reparations? So what's California done with regard to rideshare drivers and that the country should be aware of, should watch, should emulate, or be scared of?
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot there, but you'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, from the get-go, drivers have been classified as fake independent contractors by the companies. We knew that wasn't right. We knew that if we were making even minimum wage plus our expenses, we would be doing better a lot of the time. So we fought for getting full labor rights here in California.
Went on strike in California, basically.
And we went on strike.
Was that 2019?
It was 2019, May 8th, and that actually became a global strike. It was a couple days before the IPO for Uber, and their IPO tanked. We feel like we finally got out there. This is what this is about, right? So that's what happened in 2019. We fought for that, but what happened is the empire struck back, and what they did is they put through a proposition called Prop 22 that basically created second-class labor rights. And claimed it was going to help drivers have rights. It was going to help people make money. And there were some drivers that believed it. They spent $200 million, more than $200 million to try to get voters to vote for it. 40% of voters who voted for it thought they were increasing drivers' rights and pay. And we've seen our pay plummet since then, right? But I think, so that's something we got to look out for. I think it's really important that we think about not having second-class labor rights for people that are deployed by app, because any of our jobs could be deployed by app. And that's what happened 85 years ago when they wrote the Fair Labor Standards Act, the National Labor Relations Act, is basically they left huge sectors of workers out of that, domestic workers and farm workers. And when I look at it, that's racial code, right? Those were the, back in the 30s, that was majority black workers in those areas, and they cut them out of labor rights. Farm workers, domestic workers are still clawing their way up to basic minimum wage. We can't allow that to happen to a sector that's deployed by app.
I've got about 90 seconds left. Let me ask you then, as the exit question, as you see it, as Rideshare Drivers United see it, what is the best way, the best path forward first for rideshare drivers, and then what do we do about robo-taxis?
Best path forward for rideshare drivers is we need a labor rights and we need regulation around our pay. We just had a huge victory in New York State today, where drivers across the state are going to be making wages that are better than minimum wage plus your expenses. So we're very, very happy about our brothers and sisters, New York Taxi Workers Alliance in New York City, that helped make that happen. In terms of robo-taxis, we got to put guardrails right away, and we got to figure out what it means to support the workers who lose their jobs because of this. And let's think about the Jetsons. Let's try to get back to that, where it's actually going to help us and it's not going to push us down as workers, families, communities to have AI.
In 20 seconds, are you on the rideshare drivers issue? Are you hopeful?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Drivers are hugely committed, talented people, and they're ready to come together to do what it takes to make sure that we hold the line on labor rights for all people in this country.
Nicole Moore is president of Rideshare Drivers United. Nicole, thank you for your work, and thank you for coming in to see us today. I immensely enjoyed this conversation.
It was great to meet you.
Great to meet you. Thank you for your time. Brianna Joy Gray and politics when we come forward in our last half hour of today's program. Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Embattled Republican Congressman George Santos will remain in office for now. On Wednesday, the Republican-led effort to oust Santos fell short of the two-thirds vote needed to expel a member of Congress. Santos is under fire from both Republicans and Democrats for lying about his personal history and is also being charged with 23 federal counts that include stealing people's identities. Several mayors will head to the nation's capital today to ask the White House and lawmakers to act on the migrant crisis. They include the mayors of Chicago, Los Angeles, Houston, and Denver. There will be sit-downs with Biden administration officials and members of the House and Senate. The mayors of Chicago, Los Angeles, and Houston are African American. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Don't let a traffic accident ruin your day. Visit fixautousa.com to find the nearest Fix Auto location. Their highly trained and certified technicians will have you back on the road in no time. You have a choice on who fixes your vehicle. Tell your insurance agent that you want to go to Fix Auto.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers finally get a win in the Battle of LA. They beat the Clippers by 5 last night in overtime. First win for the Lakers over the Clippers since July 30th, 2020, when the NBA was in the bubble down in Orlando. The win snapped an 11-game losing streak to the Clippers. Austin Reeves scored 7 of his 15 points in overtime. LeBron played 42 minutes. He led the Lakers with 35 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists. Congratulations to the Texas Rangers and their shortstop Corey Seager. The Rangers shut out the Arizona Diamondbacks last night to win their first World Series. The Rangers did it in 5 games. They were 11-0 on the road in the postseason. Seager, who played 7 seasons with the Dodgers, was named World Series MVP. Seager had 3 homers and 6 RBIs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
The ocean absorbs a lot of our carbon emissions with the help of marine plants and animals. Sea otters, for example, help restore kelp forests and coastal wetlands that trap carbon. Learn more about these fuzzy climate warriors at the Monterey Bay Aquarium.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
If you are a private individual or a small business owner who has had problems obtaining a business loan, credit card, or just even acquiring an apartment, please call Alliance Hillview LP for a free consultation at area code 510-459-6001. That's area code 510-459-6001. Remember, don't let your past determine your future.
Hey, son. How are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it. Navigating without a compass, eyes waiting, started to wonder. Metamorphosis, the loss of who you thought you was.
When your kid can't find the language, help them find the lyrics. Listen to the Sound It Out album and get tips and tools to start a conversation at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
Do you have both Medi-Cal and Medicare?
If so, the new LA Care Plan called Medicare Plus
can help you get the most out of your health plan for $0.
LA Care provides personalized service to Angelinos like us.
Plus, it gives us access to doctors and specialists across Los Angeles County.
For zero cost, we get access to full benefits.
From vision coverage,
in-home support services,
to prescription drug coverage,
and a quarterly over-the-counter allowance.
plus personal equipment.
Meal programs,
a gym membership,
And so much more.
for more than 25 years,
LA Care has provided Angelinos with access to quality health care at an affordable cost.
For our families,
our seniors,
our community,
it's a plus.
it's a plus
for all of us.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You are indeed, and I'm glad about it. We wrap today's program in dialogue with our friend and sister Brianna Joy Gray, political commentator, lawyer, political consultant, TV host, who also served as the national press secretary for the Bernie Sanders 2020 presidential race. Brianna Joy Gray, good to have you back on this program. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be invited back. I appreciate it.
It's an honor to talk to you as always. A number of things, some trending political topics I want to cover with you in the half hour that we have. Let me start with this, some breaking news since I've been on the air. One of the former Memphis police officers charged in Tyre Nichols' death has pled guilty to federal charges of obstruction of justice and use of excessive force. The ex-officer, Desmond Mills Jr., is one of 5 officers charged with Tyre's death. He is the first to plead guilty in this case. I suspect, Brianna Joy Gray, he won't be the last. We all recall that videotape. We all were just chagrined is not strong enough word, but just disgusted. Black people were to see black folk treat a black male in this way. But at least the first of these 5 has now pled guilty. Your thoughts on that to start our conversation?
Yeah, I wish we lived in a country where it didn't seem to be a matter of holding one's breath, that you would get a guilty plea or a conviction against someone who was caught on camera engaging in such a miscarriage of justice, unprovoked violence. Remember, this is a case where the police still haven't come up with a reason after evaluating all of the video footage for why the stop was made in the first instance. So I wish it didn't seem to be surprising that you would get this outcome, but I certainly am glad, in lieu of actually having not lost a life to begin with, that this is the outcome we're seeing now.
Yeah, again, I said a moment ago, it's the first. He is the first. I suspect there'll be others. I don't know any other way out of this for these officers. I don't know how you would defend or fight this. We shall see, and they all have the right to go to trial, defend themselves if they choose to. But my bet would be that he's the first. He's going to cooperate with this investigation, and I suspect these other brothers will do likewise. What a horrible day that was when that videotape surfaced of these black cops in Memphis, not just maltreating, but murdering, frankly, Tyre Nichols. But there you have breaking news that the first of these 5 has now pled guilty and has agreed to cooperate with this investigation. Again, so many things to talk about in the 20 plus minutes that we have. Let me just move around here. I think I want to go to Cornel West first, and I want to go there. I want to talk about 2024 broadly. I go to Cornel West in part because I got a call yesterday from New York Magazine. Because Dr. West and I have been friends for 30 years, and everybody knows that, I've been asked by various publications to go on record talking about him and his candidacy. He's been in the studio before, and we'll be back here in another week or two. But I saw your conversation with him. I mentioned Brianna Joy Gray is a TV host herself, and I immensely enjoyed your conversation with him. I've teased him incessantly about not being able to find his glasses that day. There he was on national television, and he said, "Sister Brianna, I apologize. I don't know where my glasses are, but I can't find them." So the professor couldn't find his glasses, and that was fascinating for me. I called him. I said, "Doc, well, how did you lose your glasses, man?" But anyway, it was a great conversation. I enjoyed it immensely. What's your read of his campaign? And I ask it in part again because New York Magazine called me to fact check some comments that I made to them about a huge profile they have coming out in a couple of days about Dr. West, and because I've written an op-ed that will be running shortly, offering my thoughts about the way the Biden team is trying to crush these third-party candidates. So with all that as a backdrop, your thoughts about Cornel West candidates for president?
Well, first and foremost, I'd say that I am enormously supportive of third-party candidates. I think that part of why there has been so little attention from the Democratic Party to the interests of Black Americans is because we are the most faithful ethnic group in this country in terms of voting overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party year after year. And we've seen that even when the Democratic Party is rather flagrant in its dismissal of our issues. I mean, in 2020, when there were millions of people on the streets in the United States and around the world asking for justice for George Floyd and to have real meaningful criminal justice reform, obviously we're just talking about Tyree Nichols, we got the Biden campaign really leaning into the idea that we should fund the police harder. And we were asked to put our issues in the back seat because the trade-off, as it was explained to us by the Biden administration, was I might lose to Trump if you hold on to these values that you have or these policies that you want to push through electorally. And so whatever you think about the merits of those kinds of arguments, the political consequence of it is that Democrats don't feel like they need to cater to the Black vote in the way that you see them at times catering to the Latino vote, I think more strongly, in part because that's a more divided group in terms of how they tend to vote. So one, I'm very enthusiastic about his independent run. There have been a number of issues in his campaign since it started, initially announcing with the Movement for a People's Party, then switching to the Green Party, adopting Peter Dow, who was previously the campaign manager for Marianne Williamson's campaign, then came over to Cornel West's campaign, and who has now left again. And I do think that some of those personnel issues and some of those party shifting choices have occupied a bigger chunk of the conversation than his campaign itself. I think the campaign is really important, especially at this moment when you're seeing polls that reflect that while Joe Biden enjoyed 58% of the Arab American vote back in 2020, he's now down to 17% because of so many people who are frustrated at his unqualified endorsement of Israel's retaliatory attacks against Palestine, which has now killed over 9,000 people, 70% of whom are women and children in Palestine. So Cornel West being the only candidate with a very strong pro-Palestinian message, it seems like it would be a really great opportunity for him to recenter his policies and to get a campaign boost. However, polls, again, this recent Quinnipiac poll seems to suggest that to the extent that Arab Americans are looking elsewhere for Joe Biden, and they very much are, more Arab Americans are currently looking at RFK Jr. than Cornel West. So I'd really like to see some movement from his campaign, trying to perhaps, make himself more of a presence at this moment because he really was made for this moment, and also getting out there more and figuring out a way to connect to a public who I think overwhelmingly are looking for options other than a Trump-Biden rematch.
Yep. What do you make? I think I can sense it given your phraseology, but what do you make of, as you put it, Joe Biden's unqualified endorsement of Israel?
I stand with 18 humanitarian organizations who have called the status quo that existed before the horrific events of October 7th as an apartheid state. The people in Palestine, the 2.3 million of them, half of whom were children, were living in a situation where there was intense food insecurity, very little potable water and electricity, and hospital supplies being already controlled by Israel. These are people who had been pushed out of Palestine in 1948 in what is called the Nakba in Arabic, and who have been multiple generations of refugees who live sometimes mere miles from where their ancestral homelands were, who aren't allowed to return. This is the foundational condition that we have to keep in mind. And I think that in the interest of peace and safety for both Israelis and Jewish people in the diaspora and Palestinians and other Arabs in the diaspora, you cannot get there without addressing the underlying conditions. Israel is not going to bomb this third way out of the fundamental issue of having millions of people who are disaffected and displaced in this way, who ultimately, I think, I strongly believe, have a real serious claim to their self-determination in lands that are currently occupied by Israel.
There's some breaking news earlier in this program that I want to get your temperature on, take your temperature on it in a moment. Antony Blinken, our Secretary of State, we're told by the White House, is asking the Israeli government to pause the bombing every now and again. Just pause every now and again so we can get hostages out. Pause every now and then so we can get humanitarian aid in. It's almost ridiculous to read a statement like that, asking them to pause here and there, rather than calling for a ceasefire or de-escalation. We'll get Brianna Joy Gray's take on that. We mentioned Cornel West, but I want to get her take on what the left's, the progressive option is in 2024. Then we'll get her take on the drama inside the House of Representatives, or as I call it, the haunted house these days. Brianna Joy Gray is right now on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
Environmental justice, pollution, and climate. In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from Unapologetically Progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
You are now in Big Tobacco's fantasy land. Welcome. It's a healthier world where they want you to believe that vaping makes quitting cigarettes a breeze. Never mind the evidence that vaping leads to using both. And if you're younger, even better, teens who vape are 3 times likelier to use cigarettes. In Big Tobacco's fantasy land, the deadliest industry is your friend.
Big Tobacco's idea of smoke-free is a dangerous fantasy for us all. See reality at undo.org.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
More Brianna Joy Gray, who you can see on Rising. It's the TV show. It's called Rising on the Hill TV. And her podcast is called Bad Faith Podcast. She's a busy sister. Rising is a TV program on the Hill TV network. And Bad Faith is her podcast. And I'm glad she had a few minutes to spend with us. And speaking of a few minutes, that's all I have left. Let me make the most of the time that Brianna Joy Gray and I have in this conversation. I mentioned a moment ago, Brianna, that Antony Blinken, news came out of the White House today, that he is asking the state of Israel to pause, and that literally is their word, to pause the bombing here and there so that they can get humanitarian aid in and get hostages out. Pausing the bombing is a far cry from ceasefire or de-escalation to my mind, but how do you read it?
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, the idea of calling for a ceasefire, even though 66% of Americans support it, and we've seen hundreds of thousands of people across the world demonstrating, asking for exactly that, including the thousands of Jewish protesters that shut down Grand Central Station last week, asking for a ceasefire now. Until today, Dick Durbin was the first senator, the first Congress member the first senator, not the first congressman, but the first senator who's been willing to call for a ceasefire. I mean, it's really remarkable that there is such an enormous divide between public opinion and the White House and most people in Congress on this issue. So I think you're exactly right. This idea of humanitarian pauses, I think, validates the idea that the enormous disproportionality that we've now seen in the last 3 weeks in Israel's response to the October 7th attacks is appropriate. And it also seems to validate the idea that there's any relationship between these bombardments, which are overwhelmingly killing innocents, women, men, and children alike, and not killing very many of the Hamas individuals that Israel says they're targeting. So what is the fundamental purpose of continuing after a pause, I think, is a question that should be put to the people who are advocating for just a pause instead of a ceasefire.
Let me ask you right quick, why do you think that gap, that huge gap exists between the American public on the issue of ceasefire and the Biden administration?
Well, look, a 2014 Princeton study that I ended up citing a lot did an analysis of whether or not America really is a democracy, and it found that it wasn't. It's an oligarchy. And the reason is exactly this, that when you look at issue after issue, there is basically zero relationship between what public opinion is and what Congress does. What Congress does is what their lobbyists and their special interests ask them to do. And there are few lobbying interests more powerful than AIPAC, which is the National Israeli Lobbying Interest Group. This is not a Jewish lobbying group. It's not a lobbying group for Jewish Americans or even Israeli American interests. It's specifically an Israeli lobbying group, and we're seeing this now play out. I mean, AOC actually recently on Twitter in the last couple of days made a very strong statement that is frankly out of character for most people in Congress because of how powerful AIPAC is, condemning them for targeting, for example, disproportionately black Democrats who do tend to disproportionately have sympathetic policy positions toward Palestine, trying to primary them, spending millions of dollars against Nina Turner and her race and the like.
No,
so,
it's a powerful point. I'm sorry, not to cut you off. It's a powerful point, and I'm glad that she had the courage to actually say that. It's one thing to have a gap between the Supreme Court and the American people, and that's hard to explain. Well, it's not hard to explain. We've got a right-wing Supreme Court, but it's hard to justify a gap that big between what the American people want and what Supreme Court keeps doing. But this gap between the White House with an elected president and the American people on a ceasefire is unfathomable. Our remaining moments with Brianna Joy Gray when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, crisis and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Nissan has a car for every driver who wants more. More action. More fun. More guts. More head turns. More adventure. More electric. At Nissan, more is all we do.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
Just about 3 minutes left here with our guest in this hour, Brianna Joy Gray. Her podcast is called Bad Faith Podcast, Bad Faith. And she's the co-host of Rising on the Hill TV, on a pretty good show, a very good show, in fact. I like it. It's called Rising on the Hill TV. And again, her podcast is called the Bad Faith Podcast. In our last few minutes here, Brianna Joy Gray, let me ask you what the left, I am unapologetically progressive in my politics. Everybody knows that. What's my option in 2024?
All right. So the only, I think, vaguely left candidate that's left in the Democratic primary is Marianne Williamson. I think that she is a leftist. She has, I think, lost some support on the left because she is not as, she is supportive of the rights of Palestinians. She believes they have a right to self-determination, and she objects to the bombardment they're experiencing right now. But she is, I think, rightly described as a Zionist who believes in the fundamental right of there to be a Jewish state in the region, and I think is less open to the criticisms of Israel as an apartheid state. Listen to her, don't listen to me characterizing her. But that is part of why I think that she hasn't captured as much energy on the left as otherwise she might have. But it remains true that she is the left candidate for the Democratic primary. Now, after the Democratic primary is over, there is a question of what to do in the general election. And, of course, you had both RFK Jr. running as an independent and Cornel West running as an independent. My understanding is that the Green Party will be putting forward a candidate as well shortly if it hasn't been announced already. So those are going to be your options. Look, part of the criticism of Cornel West leaving the Green Party is the Green Party already has ballot access in a much larger number of states, and it's going to be difficult for Cornel West to catch up. So we'll have to see what happens in terms of the financial support he's able to get the signatures needed to get on ballots in the states that he needs to actually make a dent in this thing. But there is a huge appetite for an independent candidate, and I would love to see progressives across the country personally supporting Cornel West, and if Cornel West is not on the ballot in their state, whoever the Green Party puts forward.
In the last 45 seconds I have, is Mike Johnson too extreme to be Speaker of the House?
Well, look, I honestly believe that a lot of these are a distinction without a difference. I am an odd one out insofar as that I supported the idea of withholding the vote for Speaker. I wish progressives had done this back in 2001, withholding their votes for Nancy Pelosi, in order to get concessions that are good for the American people, not just for self-aggrandizement. And I was hopeful that Matt Gaetz got something more substantive out of this than seemingly just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. He is an extremist. He did support Donald Trump after 1/6. I frankly do think that America's problems are bigger than 1/6, regrettably, at this point. So I'm not sure how much of a difference it really makes.
Check out Brianna Joy Gray on her podcast, Bad Faith Podcast, and check her out co-hosting Rising on the Hill TV. Brianna Joy Gray, good to have you back on the program. All the best to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Same to you.
Good to have you on. That's our show for today. Back here tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow's Friday, so it's the best of Tavis Smiley. It'll be a great show, I promise you. Thanks for tuning in today and until tomorrow. And as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.